Hi everybody, Steve Griffiths here, developer of the MTPredictor software program. In today's MTPredictor video, I'd like to have a look at a lovely Holy Grail long trade on the 3-minute BankNifty, which is one of our markets that we follow over there in India, and particularly how it falls in nicely with the large degree support and resistance zones on the higher time frame charts. But as usual, we start with our risk disclaimer and remind you that all examples in these videos should be considered as hypothetical. No trades were taken, they are just shown for illustration and trading purposes only. Remind you there's a risk of loss in trading and investing. I'll put that another way, all professional traders know and understand, and more importantly accept, that losses can and will and do happen. All trade decisions are your own sole responsibility. Let's have a look at a 3-minute chart that's unfolded earlier today on the BankNifty, which is on Friday the 8th of September. Here you can see we have some automatic trade setups, some buy setups, some sell setups on the 3-minute BankNifty chart, and we also have our MTP trend indicator here. So is MTPredictor a black box system where you simply follow the MTP trend color and just take the losses and profits as they come through? So in other words, this is blue, so you'd be taking this buy setup here, which would have resulted in a 1-hour loss. Remember, we vary the number of lots, contracts or shares to keep your initial risk small and under control. So in this case it would be what we call a 1-hour loss. This one here, again, you may well have brought your stop to break even, or it might have been a 1-hour loss. And again here, there may well have been another losing trade. You wouldn't have taken that TS3 sell because it was against a blue MTP trend. There was another TS1 Holy Grail buy setup here later in the day. This one you would have taken, and this was a great trade because it came up to the first target there where the profit was 5 times the initial risk. This is a good example of how position sizing helps, because even if you'd made 3 losing trades and 1 profit, the profit would have been 5 times greater than the loss and you would have made money overall. However, that's not how we suggest you use MTPredictor. We like to have a clear picture, in particular with the larger degree support and resistance zones. For this we go to the higher time frame chart. In this case, the higher time frame is between 3 and 5 time frames higher. So on a 3-minute chart, you'd go out to a 15-minute chart. You then put your support and resistance zones on. I'll just take that one off. And the way you do that is you go back to prior highs and lows and then put your DP support and resistance zones on. So before today opened, which was here, we'd have gone back to this high, placed this as a potential resistance. You see the market didn't quite get up to this level before reversing off. There was also a a pivot support zone here. So as the market was starting to decline down, you'd have right mouse click, done DP, and had this level on the chart in advance. But now let's go down to the 3-minute chart and just see how the picture would have become a little bit clearer when we look at these larger degree support and resistance zones. First and foremost, let's have a look at earlier in the day. Well, first and foremost, we're not really coming off a clear support zone here, even though the market hasn't made this resistance zone. So all the setups here would have not been absolutely picture perfect. They've sort of been mid-trend, if you can see what I mean. In other words, we weren't really at great support here. Contradict this to later in the day. Later in the day, particularly this TS1 Holy Grail, particularly as the market came down, made the low of the day right at this DP support zone. Can you see how the market came into this zone and then reacted by moving up quite nicely? This is the kind of things we like to see. In other words, when the market is reacting off these higher time frame support and resistance zones rather than sort of drifting around in between them where the pattern is not really clear. So if you're really strict with or very conservative with picking your trades, these ones probably wouldn't have been ideal, but this one would have been a lot better because it was coming off this higher time frame support zone really clearly. In other words, the market made the reversal at this low at this support zone nicely, went up, came down, and here was your long trade. And as you can see, that would have been a very good example of our Holy Grail long trade there, with the profit at just over plus 5R. So hopefully this has been a good example of how to take your MTPredictor trading to higher levels and not just blindly taking all trades that you see. Try to filter your trades in with the higher time frame support and resistance zones, and try and be strict on filtering your trades where the picture looks good. In other words, in this example where the market had shown that it's had found support at the higher time frame DP support zone, rather than these trades here that were sort of in the middle of nowhere. In other words, the market hadn't quite reached the resistance level and drifted off. In other words, the picture was a little bit less clear early in the day than it was later in the day here. So this is how best to use MTPredictor once you become more experienced. And as you can see, a great trade later in the day on the 3-minute BankNifty.